Welcome to Grow Fast, Grow Smart, the PI Playbook by Accelerator, the podcast exclusively designed to help personal injury law firms reach their full potential and serve their clients better. Let's jump in.
What's happening, everybody? Stephen DeBosier here again. We're here with the PI Podcast Playbook, right? And we're here for Accelerator Law Firm. I'm a member of Accelerator Law Firm and of Dudley DeBosier. And we're back today with my friend, Colonel Mike Edmonson. But we're going to talk a little bit differently, not about trucks, but about how Mike Edmonson, Colonel Mike Edmonson from the state police, has managed to help us do better in the community. We thought we were doing a good job, but he's been tremendous. So, Mike, do this audience a favor. Tell us who you are and what you're doing to help us at Dudley DeBosier and Accelerator.
Well, I'm Mike Edmonson. I've been blessed in life to do a lot of really great things, and outside of being a father and a husband and having some incredible parents and having a strong faith, is I've had the ability to spend 4 decades with Louisiana State Police. An absolute love of my life. I loved wearing that blue uniform. If you saw me while I was working, I always wore that uniform. I enjoyed that. I got to spend, as a young trooper, I got to spend 26 years on the sidelines of LSU football. So we can go back to Coach Stovall in 1982, all the way to 3 national championships between Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Coach O. I've met some really great coaches, Lou Holtz and Vince Dooley, and I can tie all those together because I watched how they became successful. What I liked about Dudley DeBosier and what really endeared me to y'all, Steve, and why I wanted to come help y'all on the basis I'm helping you, because I know you're a part of the community. I know that y'all are in courts every day. I know you're doing depositions. You're not just building cases. You're not just standing up and beating your chest and say, I'm the best and come to me because I'm going to get you money. I don't like that. I want to make you better. I like the fact that I can talk to a past client of yours, and what endeared them to you is the fact that you want to make their life better. Let me tell you something. You hear some of these other commercials and go, I got $3 million. Well, you know what? You're not dancing. You're not the normal person that got that large of a settlement. Chances are they're not walking. They're not talking. They're in pretty bad shape. But what Dudley and DeBosier wants to do is they want to bring your life back whole again. In whatever way that's going to be. You want to bring that person back into a position where, you know what? You can be helpful in your own life. What's the best way we can do that? Because that's what we want to do. And when we finish with your case, guess what? We're going to call you a week later, a month later, a year later, and we're going to ask you how you're doing because we care. Because that attorney that sat in front of it was one of y'all, Steve, or any one of your attorneys or staff. They always ask them, how you doing? How can I make you better? And I think that making a difference, because I've been on the streets of Baton Rouge and across the state of Louisiana, and since I started working with y'all, I've talked to people. Okay, you hear the name Dudley DeBosier. What brings you to it? Man, because they listen to me. They talk to me. I saw Steve DeBosier. I saw Chad Dudley. I saw James Belche. Man, they stopped and they came and shook my hand. They came and talked to me. And they asked me how I'm doing. They didn't ask me, hey, you been in a wreck lately? Hey, do you need an attorney? They asked me how I was doing. Man, how are you doing? And then they walked off. I felt better as a person. That's what they told me. And I just put that to the fact because I believe that we have moments in life, and everyone does, and they're all special. And I believe you have the opportunity every single day to touch someone's life. And I see Dudley and DeBosier doing that. Makes me proud to be a part of it. Not to sit there with the law firm as a lawyer, because most times you think of a lawyer, they kind of get a bad jab. Same thing with police officers, because we normally dealing with people that have problems, that have issues. But I believe this firm makes a difference because of who they are and what they represent.
Well, let's talk about that. So I appreciate that. Very kind words of you, Colonel Mike Edmonson. But let's talk about how you are helping us get out in the community and how you're helping us be a better law firm, be more educated about how these, crashes happen and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I've had the opportunity to sit down and go into the communities where y'all are primarily working, some of the larger zip codes, as you would call it, but the parishes, and kind of reconnect with those police officers, reconnect with that chief, reconnect with that sheriff. We were just recently at the Louisiana Sheriff's Association, their annual conference. There's 64 sheriffs in Louisiana. We got to sit down and visit with 62 of them. That's huge in one location. We got to visit with a number of the district attorneys in Louisiana and sit down and have a conversation with them and say, you know what? I'm representing a law firm. How can we do a better job? What are we doing differently that's not good? What are we doing differently that is good? What are you hearing from your community? What are they saying about us as lawyers, as representatives of the legal system? What are judges saying about us? How about a district attorney? How's a district attorney perceiving us as a law firm and perceiving us when something comes before them and it says Dudley DeBosier? Do they have a preconceived notion about what their expectations are? Or do they sit there and go, you know what? I think this is going to be good. I want to read it. I want to listen to it. I want to learn from it. Because I believe in what I've seen from the attorneys I've talked to. And look, one mosquito makes a difference anywhere you go. You can have bad people, but y'all don't just let those people thrive. You go up to them and say, hey, that's not how we do things. That's not what we're going to do here. And their constant education. We're doing education now 3 or 4 times a month. That's huge because that to me tells me that you really truly want to make a difference. But me having those conversations with those first responders, the record companies, the ambulance companies, the emergency medical personnel, the firemen, being able to talk to those individuals, because what I'm trying to bring to Dudley DeBosier is to get those attorneys to get behind the eyes of that first responder, of that individual. And what do they see? How do they perceive their job? How do they perceive what's coming out after the fact, after a major incident, after a major fire, after a major crash? What are your expectations of what's going to happen to you? And I can bring that back to Dudley and have those serious conversations.
And Mike, I want to point out to the viewers here, Louisiana's like this, and your state's probably like this as well. The sheriff in each one of your counties, we call them parishes in Louisiana, but the sheriff of those counties is the person that's most connected to that community. Is that right, Mike?
No, absolutely. I mean, they're the leaders within the community. And let me say, I've been in every major incident in this state since 1980, because I was a sheriff's deputy going to LSU during that time. So everywhere we talk about the Exxon explosion, the BP oil spill, all the major hurricanes that have come through, the vast amount of floodings, the pandemic. I mean, and now we're dealing with the migrants and stuff that are moving across the country. So I understand the border, I understand law enforcement, I understand the drug issues and drug problems that we're having in Louisiana. My deal is, let me learn from that. And as you as an attorney, if you wait for an emergency to happen before you meet someone, guess what? It's not going to be a pleasant meeting, okay? Those people you need to have a conversation with. When I say I'm getting ready to call Steve DeBosier, well, hey, Steve, it's Bill, it's Frank, it's Linda, hey, Bill, hey, it's Mike. And you know that person, you have that relationship. Not having that relationship before a critical case, a critical trial, a critical incident, from my perspective, that's not good. And I think what we're bringing to Dudley DeBosier is we're being proactive, because for far too long in all kinds of fields, I found that in state police, we're just being active. We just, what's coming through the door? Okay, let's deal with it. Okay, rain, storms, all the different things. Let's react. No, let's have a plan and let's be proactive, because maybe we can stop so many things from happening. Maybe we can get enough word out there that we as a law firm in Dudley DeBosier, we want to be a part of good things happening. And guess what? If I only have 3 cases this week because I made a difference, I've heard you say that, Steve, that you want to get to the point where, you know what, they don't need me. What a great deal that would be, that we don't need that because people are doing things right. And to hear that from you, Steve, as someone that spent 4 decades in law enforcement, that made me stop and think. I'm definitely in the right place, because we're not after ruining people's lives. We're out about making it better.
That Mike, couldn't say it any better. I mean, we do want this world to be a safer place. And there's still bad people. There's still bad people doing stupid shit, and we got to be out there to protect the victims of that, right? And that's so similar to what the police officer's doing, right? He's out there trying to protect victims, and we are as well. And the more we can be aligned with that, with the police officers, with the troopers, with all the different sheriffs, and you've opened those doors for us, right? You've opened those doors to allow me and my partner James and my partner Chad to be able to talk to the sheriffs of each one of these parishes, county, in your state, and be able to have a real conversation about what matters to us. Because we're not out there just saying everybody's bad, because that just isn't true. I want to be able to tell my kids with a straight face, there's good people in this world. Most people are good. We just have to protect ourselves from the shitty people out there that do exist, right, Mike?
You absolutely. You got to be prepared for it. You got to be educated for it. And you have to make people come. No one's going to talk to you if they're not comfortable. Absolutely. I don't care who you are as an individual, no matter a police officer wearing a uniform, carrying a gun. You're not going to force a person to talk to you when they're not comfortable. But gosh, when you can make them comfortable, when you make them understand that, hey, Steve, how are you doing? It's a start of a conversation. It's not just a passing comment. How are you doing? What's going on in your life? What can I do to make it better? Or, hey, I'm stopping you to ask you a question. Here's why I'm asking it. I really want to know the answer. And I think that's what, if I can impart to the legal community around this country, is to have those conversations, communicate on the front end, prepare yourself from a proactive standpoint. I can point to my time with coaches that won national championships week before the game, and how they prepared for it, how they taught every single person that you need to know not only your position, but what's going on to your left and right, what's going to happen with the guy in front of you, what you've seen in films that he's going to move to the left, he's going to back up. How are you going to do your job? And it takes every single person doing their job to be successful. That was huge in Nick Saban's life. Being successful. It's a 1 hour game. It's not 59 minutes and 40 seconds. It's a 1 hour game, and he coached to the very last second, and he prepared you for it. So did Lou Holtz. So did Vince Dooley. So did Les Miles and all the ones that came through, and the ones I got to meet throughout this country. They prepared themselves. They had conversations, and they listened.
And so that, one of the things that you said multiple times, and I want this audience to really pay attention to it. I've been doing this for 31 years now. I guess 31 years next month. And the one thing that somebody told me when I was younger, and it just didn't resonate, and I wish people would really listen to this, is listen. In that deposition, listen to the answer. Don't look at your notes about what you're going to ask. Look that person right in the eye and listen to what they're saying. Because there's a lot of people out there that can't wait to tell you what happened. They can't wait to tell you the truth. But if you're looking down your paper and waiting, to ask the next question, when you're out there in the street and you're talking to these police officers, they want you to look them right in the eye and listen to what they have to say. Because that's how you make people become your friend. That's how you get people to be on your side. That's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for honesty, and we're looking for people to say, hey, we know you're on the side of good. We're not here to lower the stock price of some insurance company, right? We're on the side of right. And so to get them there is that you have to listen and actually be empathetic to their problems and what they're trying to solve. So what I want to touch on next, and you started to touch on it, Mike, in our business, listening, huge. Attention to detail, huge. Because knowing what documents to get, knowing what matters. One of the favorite stories is the great Mark Lanier tried this Actos case, and he had 33 million documents. 33 million documents in like 7 or 8 different languages. And he tried the case with 9 documents. 9. Because he knew exactly what he needed to get, right? And so that's what we're talking about. Attention to detail. What is it that's going to move those 12 people? What is it that's going to make this insurance company say, we got to get rid of this case because these guys get it and they got our ears pinned back? So let's talk about attention to detail, because you had the luxury, Mike, of being on the sidelines with how many national championship coaches? 2, 3?
No, I've watched 3 of them come through, and I got to spend time before he passed with our first coach at LSU that won a national championship. So I got a chance to listen to all of them. But you touched on something, because as a little boy, I used to go on Saturday mornings, wake up early, and my dad would say, you want to go to the post office with me? Probably the last place I want to watch a cartoon. I want to go play with my friends. but that is where I needed to be. I need to be walking with my dad, holding his hand to the post office to see what he did and what was important to him. And when we would meet people, he'd say, son, look them in the eye, shake their hand, repeat their name back to them. Because that amount of communication, you don't have to be special to be great, Steve. You just have to have the desire to want to be. Because we can teach people anything. You can learn other languages. You can learn to do, you may not be great at it. You may not even be good at it. But you as a human being, we can learn things. There's a vast amount of things that we can do. And I think you need to understand that from individuals, because that makes you understand why they did what they did. You get into their brain, you get into the chance of listening to them, and you go, okay, wow, that's what makes a difference. That attention to detail by listening to learn. I was with several presidents. I got a chance to meet 4 of them. I spent 2.5 hours with President Obama. This was after the police shootings in Baton Rouge. And we were sitting in a room, there was like 25 of us, and it was people from around the country. We were talking about these police shootings. What's going on? What do you thought? And he got to me. I was actually 4 people to his right. And he turned and looked at me, and I listened to the conversation he's having with the people. He was engaged. He was listening. And he looked over, he said, Colonel, Edmonson. Yeah, Mike Edmonson, Baton Rouge. Hey, saw you on TV last night. Saw you doing your interview. What do you think's going on out there? And I said, you know what? I brought the comment. I said, you know what? You've got 2 daughters. I've got 4 kids. We listen to respond, don't we, Mr. President? He goes, what do you mean? I said, we listen to respond. We're not listening to them talking to us because we want to say something. They said something that irked us, pissed us off, whatever, and we want to respond. I said, wouldn't it be nice if we take an extra 3, 4, 5, 10 seconds and listen to our children, listen to those people around us? He's left-handed. He was writing it down. The other thing, I said, you know what? Why can't we take a pause as a country? I said, who can take a pause? Let me tell you who can't take a pause. A first responder. You as a police officer, you respond to something and someone sticks a gun right at you. Can you sit there and go, oh, time out, let's rethink this. I know you're sticking a gun at me. We need to pause and let's have a conversation. You cannot do that as a police officer. You cannot walk into their house and you confront a criminal or somebody wants to harm you or somebody else. You can't hit the pause button. But guess who can? A surgeon operating on your brain, Steve, can hit the pause button and say, I need to take a look at that picture. I need to look at these veins and all the things going in there. I got to make sure I'm in the right place. A baseball player, they can step back from the batter's box, take a timeout. They can go talk to their coach. A pitcher can stop, a football. Everybody else can hit the pause button. You know what? An attorney, you can hit the pause button and go, I need to talk to my client for a minute. I need to revisit a question we talked about earlier. I need to sit there and really understand why you do that. And as I was talking to the president, he's going, wow, that is absolutely true. And I just said, you know, we sit there and we give accolades to somebody that hits 3 hits out of 10. That means you failed 7 times. But yet we give accolades to them. But a police officer makes one mistake and they can be ruined for life. And I think we've got to have those conversations and understand that. And I had that with the most powerful guy on earth on that one. I've talked to multiple presidents, but him as superintendent, I saw him probably 4 or 5 times. I really had a conversation with him. What I liked about him and was the fact that when I told him stuff, he used it in his press conference right after that. He remembered, and when I saw him,
and Mike, let me ask you this question: if he used it in the press conference right after, what did that tell you about what he was doing in your meeting?
He's listening.
That's right.
He was paying attention, and he was trying to say, how can I make my position better by what that person just told me? And I learned from that. I learned from my dad those types of things of how important it is. I used to watch him in some difficult times, you know, growing up and winning and losing and all my time in the state police. I always saw my dad, you know, he was there looking at me and just looking at me. I didn't know if he's sitting there going, boy, son, that's stupid. He probably was, but he listened to me. And he said, you know what? That was stupid. Or he said, son, I'm proud of you. But when I buried my dad last September, 2 days before my birthday, I had the opportunity to be with him early that day. and just sit there and listen to him when I know he's passing. Don't know when. I know he's passing. And he sat there and he said, son, you're perfect. You've done some great things. You've done some bad things, but you've made a difference. You've truly made a difference in people's lives. And I mean, Steve, I know how to act. You know, I left. He died a couple hours later. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, it doesn't matter where I've been in life or who I've talked to. The person that thought I was the greatest thing on earth, I just had the conversation with. I got to spend that time with him. We don't take the time wherever we are in life to take those moments and understand you don't have to be special to be great. You don't have to do anything but listen, communicate, and learn from it. And that's what I've taken from my dad, from my faith, from the people I've met, from watching these championship coaches. I've watched them before and after a game. I've watched their irks and their quirks and their different things of what they do preparing for it. And I took bits and pieces of that because I wanted to be a better I want to be a better Christian. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better dad. I want to be a better son. And working with Dudley DeBosier, I wanted to impart what I could. I'm 65 years old. I wanted to impart that information back to those attorneys because I know what success is and I know what failure is. And I know where I did not want to be. So let me help you. I just listened to me to learn to listen to other people. Because let me tell you something. I am no better than any other human being on earth. I'm no better than them. I don't think I'm any worse, but I'm no better. As soon as I think I'm better, then we've got a problem. Because then I stop listening. Then I stop learning. Then I put myself above people. And you know Dudley DeBosier does. They don't do that. That's not a reputation that you have to where you think you're better than other people. And Steve, that's why I'm here. Because I want to be a part of something that wants to be better every single day and knows how to get there.
Well, so let's talk about that for a second because, one of the things we keep talking about, and if you take anything from this podcast, is slow your roll a little bit and listen. Listen to the people in your office. Listen to the people that you depose. Listen to the judges. Listen even to the defense lawyers. What I've learned over doing this for 30-something years is that a lot of times, when I'm deposing a driver of a vehicle for a company, they are so upset that they hurt somebody that they can't wait to tell you. Let me tell you what really happened is that I told my boss this truck was dangerous. I told my boss this car was dangerous. I told them I shouldn't be doing this, but they said do it anyway, right? But the only way you ever get there is to do what Mike's talking about. You got to slow your roll and listen to that person and let them know that you actually care about their answer. You actually are engaged with them. You have empathy for their situation because not everybody's a bad person, right? There's people that make mistakes and sometimes they just want to own up to it. And so that's what you're talking about. And the attention to detail is simply, my goodness, man, we get all these documents and they're coming from every different direction. But just take the time to look at it and say, what is important about this case? What is it that you should do in this case? What can we make a difference? What is it that a jury's going to go, that's an interesting document. Why'd they do that? Why'd they say that? Right? And then take the opportunity to go learn from everybody. Go depose bosses, coworkers, things like that. So that's why it's important to take the time, listen, and be thankful for what you have.
Yes, and Steve, you clicked on something extremely important. A very dear friend of mine, an attorney. You spoke to him on the phone, Tom Pirtle in Houston. And I asked him one time, I said, okay, you've had some extremely large cases that have made impacts across this planet. I said, do you ever get into a case where you, because I've heard attorneys say this, man, I've lost a case, I'm doing my closing, I just want to get out of there. Bullshit. You haven't lost the case till that verdict has come out. And he told me that he felt, he said, you know what? I wasn't clicking. I was doing my due diligence. I was bringing things out. And I did have a feeling going into a closing that, wow, this isn't going good. He said, but before I got up to do my closing, I looked at that jury and I connected with one of them. I saw one of them look back at me and I go, whoa, wait a minute. I remember that same look on something that I said during course of this trial. So in my close, I changed it. They're not set, closings aren't set in stone. Questions aren't set in stone. You can change and do whatever. You're controlling that moment in your life. And he said, I remembered that. So in my closing, I went back to that. And I zeroed in on that jury, but I also looked at everybody else. And I was trying to pull them all in exactly where I was strong. I made a difference in one. And sometimes that's all you have to do is make a difference in one, because they're going to convince others. So I went back to that and I worked back through that. He got a unanimous verdict on something that he was going to be completely lost, because he engaged the people that were most important. And I think we've got to understand that in our lives. Who is most important in that moment that you got to pay attention to, that you can learn from, that you're going to get information from, and go back there. And yes, hit the pause button when you need to. Take a step back. Ask for a recess. Ask to can you call somebody back up and ask a question? Can you have a conversation with the judge, with your opposing attorneys? Can you have a question with your client? Because things are going to come up. You go, whoa, wait a minute. Just like that trooper driving to that crash, that police officer responding to a home burglary or some type of incident, just like that record driver going to pick up a vehicle and he sees it in front of him, just like the emergency technicians that are going in an ambulance or going to save a life. What is going through their heads? What are they looking at? What do they see? What prompts me to say, why did you do the things you do? And Steve, if you didn't have a conversation with the driver, if you didn't get under that truck, if you didn't get behind that wheel and look to the blind spot, look at all the things he's got to deal with, understanding those shifting, the hitting the brakes, all those things he has to do, then you wouldn't know what to ask. And when you did ask, you wouldn't know if he's telling you the truth or not. But as an attorney, you've got to educate yourself in every aspect of what you're going to do if you want to be successful. And you have the ability to do that.
And it all starts with asking the question, listening, and trying to get to the why somebody's doing something. And you got to be in the right frame of mind. A good friend of mine, Joe Freed, says the best way to get in the right frame of mind is to think about who you're thankful for. Who is it that's made your life better? Is it your staff? Is it your spouse? Is it whomever? But take that moment to think about it and live in the moment in that exact time, and take the time to please listen. And if you get anything out of this, go to that next deposition, go to that next hearing. Don't be thinking about what you're going to say next. Make sure you know what they tell you, because they're telling you for a reason. So
Jerry Stovall was the first coach that I started working with LSU as a young trooper on the sidelines. So I got to go with many of the coaches when they went to visit the families. And let me tell you what I saw within Jerry Stovall, and he should have won the Heisman Trophy when he played at LSU. Had an incredible year. He sat down, and Nick Saban did the same thing. They always talked to the parents before they got there, even on the phone. We talked to you on, and he asked the parents questions. You can just go zoom right on the kid. But let me tell you what I witnessed Jerry Stovall do that you can do as an attorney. Is that he sat down and he said, let me tell you something before we get started. He looked him in the eye. He goes, you are safe with me. I'm gonna throughout our relationship on what we're talking about, I want you to know that. He said, I tell my wife that every single morning. And when I go to work, when I get home at night, before I go to bed, I love you, honey. His kids, you are safe with me. Think about that. If I can convince someone to let them know, hey, let me tell you something. I'm with you, man. I believe in you, and you are safe with me. Wow. What you can get out of that person, what you can make them tell you, what you can genuinely find out to where I say, hey, look, you really messed up there. You really messed up, and here's what could happen to you. But here's how we're going to approach this. Here's what we're going to talk about. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to say. And you're going to help me say it. And you do it by saying, you are safe with me. And Steve, that's what here at Dudley DeBosier, I hear there every Monday morning. You have that huddle. You're talking to people. You're zeroing on people that have issues or something like that. And without saying it, you're telling every single employee, hey, you're safe with me.
And could you imagine, for the lawyers listening to this, that relationship you could have with your client if you looked them in the eye and said, you're safe with me. You're safe with me. right? This podcast is a little different than most of them that we do, but this is more about take the time, slow your roll, listen, let people know that you're there for them. And that's why we at Dudley DeBosier, we have Mike Edmonson with us, Colonel Mike Edmonson, to make our lives better, to help us with this program. And you can do it too. Slow your roll, take a listen, and let the people know that you're lucky enough to represent. Remember that. The clients you're lucky enough to represent, that you're there for them, you want to hear from them, you want to know what they're going through, and they're safe with you. Thank you, Mike Edmonson. You've been fantastic.
Thank you.
That's all for today's episode of Grow Fast, Grow Smart, the PI Playbook by Accelerator. Be sure to subscribe for more tips and tricks on growing your law firm the smart way.